Hello, I'm back. Because I adore you all, I'm giving myself the extra task of cleaning up the extra, even more reverb than usual in this temporary recording space with the lovely piece of glass behind me, so that I can bring you this amazing view out our current bedroom window here at Apartamentos Otorongo. Link in the description. Clearly, the questions were recorded before we left the US, and these answers are recorded in Ecuador. So, here's part 2 of the questions we're asked. I've seen the news. Isn't it dangerous? Well, this was covered in the first video in this little series of videos I'm doing. I'm on Ecuador, but you can go here, or it'll be in the description. Anyway, after you've watched this one to see that whole video, but the quick answer is Ecuador is no more dangerous than most anywhere else. It depends on where you live, where you go, when you go, where you go, and your general awareness of your surroundings. Kinda like any other city in the world. How can you move so far away? Well, it's not really any further than if we had, say, moved to San Francisco, California, which from Redding, PA is 2,828 miles west. We just chose to go 2,992 miles south, which is only an additional 164 miles. It only seems farther because we've gone to a different country, although one could argue that Redding and San Francisco are entirely different countries. So, yeah, think of it this way: if you must, we moved to California, but went the wrong direction. Or, for us, the right direction. And we'll always be in touch. Just not by snail mail, only electronically. Yeah. There's no post office here in Ecuador. What do you mean there's no post office? How was that for a tortured segue? What I mean is that in 2020, the post office, as we know a post office in the US at least, ceased to be here in Ecuador. So no snail mail in Ecuador. The upside, of course, is no constant barrage of wasteful junk mail. The downside is that to get cards or letters from the US means FedEx or DHL. And that's very expensive. As an example, for our U.S. federal background check, which is a visa requirement in Ecuador, we needed to send an envelope containing five letter-sized pages from Reading to Ecuador via FedEx. The cost? About $150. So, while we loved getting, and probably even more so, sending Christmas cards, that will no longer be a thing. From here on out, it's a world of electronic communications. Now, if you do slip up and send us a card or letter, don't fret. It goes to our traveling mailbox, which is a wacky service where any of our U.S. mail now goes. More on that, perhaps, in another video. But really, don't send us snail mail. Text, email, FaceTime, WhatsApp are all excellent and more immediate and personal alternatives. What time zone are they in? If you're on the East Coast, we're in the same time zone as you, except when the US is in daylight savings time. Ecuador doesn't do that silliness, so during your summer, our winter, yes, it's winter, and the seasons are opposite, that whole other side of the equator thing, we're an hour Behind Paul, back spring ahead. Yes, behind you. But still pretty much straight below you. What about all your stuff? How are you getting all of that to Ecuador? We're not. We've culled our lives down to just 2 backpacks for 17-gallon Lowe's storage tubs. You know, the ones that are stacked endlessly near the entrance of any Lowe's. And they're always on sale, so if you want to follow our example and come on down, you know where to get your luggage. And yes, they survived the flight with no problems. Although we discovered that oversized luggage, which these were treated as, doesn't come down the little chute at the baggage claim with all the rest of the luggage. It gets stacked at the oversized baggage area, a fact we didn't realize until almost everyone had picked up their gently spinning luggage. Thankfully, a kindly airport worker pointed us in the right direction, and we were reunited with our minimal remaining belongings. We did leave a large suitcase and a box with, well, to be gotten here somehow, someday, with our friends John and Richard. Thank you. There were a few extra items that we wanted to keep, but because of item and weight limits, we couldn't bring them with us at this time. We'll be reunited with them someday. The rest? Sold, tossed, or given away. All of it. Gone. It was an exercise in, as the song says, let it go. I'll do a more in-depth video on that process some other time. Without the singing. How can you leave your family? What about your friends? Well, very honestly, we have minimal family left. We moved from New York City to Reading, PA to take care of our aging parents. And they are no longer with us. Those relatives we love have given us their blessing, and most are likely to visit at some point. As to friends, we'll likely get visitors from that camp as well. So, we're not leaving as much as we're giving folks a cool vacation destination. And again, we're only as far away as Zoom, FaceTime, text, or what have you. We're always open to scheduling a video breakfast date. What about your cats? Oops, yeah, sorry, Gooch and Muzzy. You're not going to Ecuador. Of course they came with us. I forgot to include them in the earlier what we brought section, but yeah, they were at our feet in the plane, in their little carriers. And much to my surprise and delight, they were absolute angels, nary a peep or poop the whole journey. I've heard that you don't want to be called an expat. What's wrong with that? Switching gears, okay. So, expat. I must admit that is the easiest term to describe what we've become, and I do admit that I've used it myself, and probably will again, to describe us numerous times, because it's what everyone here calls themselves. But I do find it a kind of loaded word. Here, why do we call those coming to the U.S. immigrants, and those from the U.S. moving to another country expats? It's the same animal, isn't it? So to me, expat seems tinged with a slightly unpleasant smell of Anglo privilege, bringing to mind that generation of pith helmet wearing colonialists conquering the world, which of course was not theirs to conquer, but rather was happily inhabited by its native inhabitants. The goal Jamie and I have is to embrace and immerse in the local culture, not try to make this culture fit our former life. If we wanted Ecuador to be the US, why would we leave the US? Where's the adventure and growth in that? So, yeah, soon I'll be a temporary resident. Then, in a few more years, a permanent resident. But I'll still remain an immigrant to this country. It's kind of like moving to Maine. You can be there 50, 60, 70 years. But if you weren't born there, you'll always be a foreigner. And as long as respect is given in both directions, that's perfectly fine with us. Will you visit the US ever again? Actually, because our departure was 2 days. 2 days? 2 days before I could meet the 180-day limit to renew my driver's license, which I do want to keep. I, likely not Jamie, will be back in the States briefly sometime before August of this year. Other than that, during the first few years of our resident visa process, we can only be out of the country for X number of days. So we're not making any return visit plans. We're saving those X number of days in the event of some unexpected event that requires our return, like getting a driver's license renewed. A quick story before I end this already long enough video, but I think it's important. Jamie and I were with my mom when she passed. We were there with her, holding her hand and actually having a great conversation. Minutes before she left us, she looked me in the eye and asked, "Where are you going now?" And I knew she didn't mean, at that moment, her room. She meant where we were living, Reading, PA. She recognized that we were now, and I hate to use the word free, but that implies that we were bound there by duty. And it wasn't that at all. I guess you could say we were bound there by love. And with my mom's passing, she the last of our parents, that bond broke. But the love could be carried in our hearts anywhere we wanted to go. Unfortunately, in that moment of her need to know that we were not going to stay there, we were going to move forward with our lives, well, we didn't have a good answer. We hadn't planned that far ahead in any concrete way. So I said, I guess we're here for some time. And I could tell she wanted some better answer, one with forward motion attached. I wish I could have given her an answer then, but now we'll have to do. So, here's your answer, Mom. Although, I know she already knows because I always feel her with me close by. Ecuador. We're moving to Ecuador. We moved to Ecuador. What do you think about that? And then she'd ask all these questions that I've been answering for you. Thanks for watching. I'll try to do a more in-depth process video at some point, and clearly more about what our lives are like on this little great new adventure, third act in Ecuador, and probably more Q&A. Until then, remember, life is good, and too short, and too long to be lived in what-ifs. Love, peace, and lots of light to us all. And until the next time, from beautiful Ecuador, I'll see you soon.